Disturbance in the Ice Queen's Heart. Chapter 1. The Disturbance in Riley Bennett. Her world stayed black and comfortably dim, the way she liked it. People were messy. They hurt you, break you, leave you in pieces, and then act shocked when you don't rise from the ashes for their encore. That was Riley Bennett's mantra, whispered like a prayer to fend off unwanted warmth. Black hoodie, black cargo pants, black combat boots squeaking across the marble floors of Synergex's marketing wing. Riley Bennett was a ghost in this building, a brilliant financial analyst, yes, but a ghost nonetheless. She drifted unnoticed, untouched, undisturbed, until she wasn't. Another monthly meeting. Another slow, suicidal shuffle into a room filled with corporate small talk and forced optimism. Riley would rather carve her initials into a brick wall with her teeth. "Riley, wait up." The too-bright voice of Jenny Thorne ricocheted through the hallway and straight into Riley's skull. Sunshine in human form had found her again. Jenny had adopted Riley 3 years ago, self-appointed best friend, human conscience, savior of kittens, rescuer of stray souls, and certified dealer of emotional glitter. Riley exhaled like a condemned soul. Jenny caught up, looped her arm through Riley's, and launched into a monologue involving a homeless man needing a blanket, a cat needing a home, and some other charitable quest that made Riley's skin itch but warmed a tiny, traitorous corner of her chest. They stepped into the boardroom. Riley veered toward the back like a shadow with a plan, but Jenny dragged her to the front, depositing her mere meters from the chair reserved for the CEO and her latest sacrificial assistant. Riley slid into the seat, hid behind her tablet, and pulled her hoodie halfway over her dark hair. Her world reduced to spreadsheets and numbers, the only safe territory she knew. Colleagues drifted in. The shuffle of papers, soft clicks of tablets, muted murmurs, and then the temperature dropped. The air tightened, crisp with invisible authority. Silence spread like frost. Elena Quinn entered the room, Synergex's Ice Queen, storm in stilettos, followed by her doomed new assistant. Riley slunk lower in her chair, trying to breathe without being perceived. The meeting began. Departments spoke in clipped, cautious tones. No one dared fluff their numbers or breathe too loudly. Then Riley felt it. A pressure. A pull. A stare strong enough to rearrange her atoms. Fighting the urge to look up was like trying to resist a riptide. Riley had perfected the art of staying small, unseen, uninteresting. Never make eye contact, people take it as an invitation. But this was different. It was a gravitational force aimed straight at her ribs. She lifted her gaze slowly, painfully slowly, and above her glasses, collided with storm-gray eyes. Elena Quinn was watching her. Not glancing. Not scanning the room. Watching her. Riley's heart jackhammered, threatening to burst through bone and embarrassment. Her hands trembled. Her throat turned to sand. Sweat pricked at her brow. Elena stood slow, deliberate. She walked toward Riley's chair, every step a silent earthquake. She paused beside Riley, just long enough to scorch her senses, and then walked out. The only thing she left behind was her perfume, dark and dangerous, and a world Riley suddenly wasn't sure she understood anymore. Chapter 2. Elena Quinn, Ice Queen. Elena pushed her office door shut and leaned against it, breathing out a rough whisper. What the fuck was that? Her heart was beating too fast, an unfamiliar, unwelcome frenzy. Elena Quinn did not get flustered. She didn't panic. She didn't feel anything she didn't authorize. Her heart was supposed to be a frozen organ that thudded only to keep her alive, not perform interpretive dance. She moved toward her desk on unsteady legs and sat heavily, pressing a hand to her chest. Still traitorous. Elena Quinn, CEO, terror of boardrooms, destroyer of excuses, had a heart. And right now, it was behaving like it had a crush. She yanked her laptop open and typed with a speed born of desperation. Staff profiles loaded. She scanned faces, departments, titles, until she found her. Riley Bennett. All black everything. Head of the financial department. 5 years with the company. Promoted on merit. Brilliant track record. And every performance review echoed the same chorus. Keeps to herself. avoids social engagement, interacts only when necessary, avoid if possible. How had Elena never noticed her? How could one glance, one pair of dark, guarded eyes light a torch in a heart she'd assumed was long extinguished? A knock at her door snapped her back into CEO mode. "Come," she called, voice a touch too sharp. Her new assistant stepped in, trembling slightly, tablet clutched like a lifeline. "Oh, for God's sake, don't just stand there, come in." Her voice was clipped and irritated. "Reports from the monthly budget meeting, Miss Quinn." She stared at him for a beat, waved him away, and he practically sprinted out. She tried to return to her composed facade, but it shattered again the moment she thought of Riley's eyes. Irritated with herself, Elena grabbed her bag and swept out of the office. "Reschedule my afternoon," she muttered to the assistant as she passed, not slowing down. The parking garage echoed with the cold rhythm of her heels. Her Mustang unlocked with a soft chime. She slipped inside, gripping the steering wheel as if it could ground her. Avoidance. Ice. Control. Those were her laws. Riley Bennett lived by similar rules. So why was the universe suddenly conspiring to set their frozen worlds on fire? Chapter 3. The static between them. Synergex pulsed with its usual Monday misery, the sterile lights, the faint hum of aircon trying its best to cool a building full of overheated egos. The world outside was dripping with rain, but inside, Riley Bennett moved with her usual storm cloud grace, silent, fast, untouchable. At least, she tried. But something had shifted. Something was wrong in the way her boots hit the tiles, in the way her fingers refused to stay still around her coffee cup, in the way the shadows felt too close, too loud. Her world had always been comfortably dark. Today, it flickered. Jenny practically skipped beside her, singing some nonsense about a fundraiser for baby pandas or underfed pigeons. Riley half listened, half fought the urge to look behind her, because it felt like someone was watching. Ridiculous. She buried the thought. They reached the finance offices and Riley escaped into her office, her sanctuary of spreadsheets and blessed silence. Numbers didn't judge. Columns didn't ask for eye contact. Profit margins didn't stare into your soul like. No. Nope. Cut that thought. Torch it. Bury the ashes. She opened her laptop with a sharper slam than necessary. Focus, she told herself. The quarterly projections were bleeding into red, a situation she should care about, but all she could feel was that ripple of cold along her spine, like a memory she didn't own. The disturbance had a name. She refused to say it. Elena Quinn was unraveling. Quietly. Violently. 3 floors above, Elena stood at the window of her office, fingers drumming against the glass. Her reflection glared back at her, severe bun, colder eyes, a jaw set like she was preparing for war. She hated this version of herself. Not because she was cold. That was familiar. Comfortable. This version was shaken. Riley Bennett. The name tasted like electricity. She'd had a weekend full of board reports, back-to-back crises, and one idiot VP who dared to ask if she was feeling emotional lately. That man was now unemployed. Good riddance. But even that hadn't cleared her head. Riley's eyes, hidden behind glasses, dark with galaxies of exhaustion, kept replaying in her mind like some glitching reel she couldn't delete. Get over it. She inhaled sharply. Her fingers hovered over the intercom, but slipped away. What was she going to do? Summon Riley Bennett for what? A meeting about why her face was haunting the CEO? Pathetic. Elena pushed off the desk and stalked toward the elevator. Distance. She needed distance. A walk, a breath, a shot of something strong. The elevator chimed and, of course. The doors slid open to reveal Riley Bennett standing inside, hood half up, earbuds in, looking like she'd been painted in grayscale compared to the world. Elena froze. Riley froze. The air between them stung, sharp enough to bleed. Riley's fingers twitched. Elena's jaw tightened. Neither moved. The elevator doors tried to close, bumped, reopened, as if the universe refused to let them escape each other. Are you? Elena's voice cracked like thin ice. Riley's answer was a whisper she didn't mean to speak. Why are you everywhere today? A silence descended, thick, suffocating, charged enough to power the building. Elena stepped to the side without a word. Riley slipped out, head low, pace fast, like she was fleeing a crime scene. The doors closed behind her. Elena exhaled shakily, pressing her palm to the steel wall. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. And yet, the ghost of Riley Bennett lingered in the metal like a fingerprint. Downstairs, Jenny Thorne was already plotting. Because she saw it. She saw everything. "Why's your face red?" Jenny asked, appearing at Riley's side with the enthusiasm of a caffeinated sunbeam. "It's not," Riley muttered. "It is. And you look like you saw a tax return file itself." Riley shoved her hood deeper onto her head. "Jenny. Not today." "Oh God," Jenny gasped dramatically. "It's the Ice Queen, isn't it?" Riley nearly tripped. Jenny's grin went feral. "Oh my God, it is." Riley hated her life. Above them, Elena canceled her next 4 meetings. Her assistant stared, confused. "Miss Quinn, the board. Move them. All." Sharp voice, sharper heels. "And bring me everything we have on the financial division." The assistant blinked. "All of it." "All," she thundered, even though she only needed one name in those files. Riley Bennett. Chapter 4. Cracks in the ice, shadows in the dark. Riley Bennett didn't run. Running drew attention, and attention was the enemy. But the moment she escaped that elevator, that metal coffin of tension, she walked fast enough to blur into the floor tiles. She slipped into her office, shut the door with uncharacteristic force, and braced both hands against her desk. Her breaths came shallow, too quick. Why was Elena Quinn everywhere today? Why did the universe shove the Ice Queen into her path like some cosmic prank? Jenny popped her head in. Riley threw a stapler at the door. Jenny closed it again. Good. Silence. She needed silence. She needed thunder in her chest. Static under her skin. That feeling again. Like someone was pulling invisible strings connected to her ribs. Get a grip. She straightened, shook out her fingers, and opened the newest financial anomaly flagged overnight. Except, her screen blurred. Her mind kept circling that elevator moment. Her own words haunted her. "Why are you everywhere today?" She hadn't meant to say it. She never let thoughts slip out. Words were dangerous. They opened doors, and Riley kept her doors bricked up and sealed with barbed wire. She pinched the bridge of her nose. One moment. Just one moment had thrown her entire equilibrium off its axis. This was bad. This was catastrophic. Riley Bennett did not get rattled. And yet here she was, vibrating like a live wire. Meanwhile, Elena Quinn was hunting ghosts disguised as spreadsheets. Her office looked like a strategic war room. Documents stacked. Graphs pulled up. Coffee untouched and cooling like a corpse. Her assistant hovered nervously. "Miss Quinn, do you need anything?" "No," Elena snapped. Then, softer, "Leave the door open." Her assistant nodded and fled. Elena didn't actually want the door open. She wanted air. Movement. Something to prevent her from imploding into the leather of her chair. Riley Bennett. A name that shouldn't mean anything. A woman Elena had apparently walked past for years without noticing. But now? Now the memory of her, the hooded figure, the dark hair half hidden, the quiet fury in her posture, was seared into Elena's synapses. She wasn't angry about it. No. Anger was familiar, predictable, comforting even. This was something worse. Intrigue. A dangerous, inconvenient curiosity. She lifted Riley's profile again, as if hoping the pixels would reveal more than facts. Age, 29. Role, head of finance. Performance, impeccable. Social notes, minimal interaction. Isolated. Keeps to herself. Elena's jaw clenched. So not just a ghost. A disciplined ghost. Invisible by choice. That stirred something unpleasantly warm in her chest. She dropped the tablet on the desk and stood so abruptly her chair rolled back and hit the wall. She moved to the window again, staring down at the street, where rain still streaked like veins across the glass. She needed to focus. She needed her ice back. But her mind, traitorous thing, replayed Riley's whisper. "Why are you everywhere today?" Elena's spine tingled. She hated the feeling. She wanted another emotion, irritation, rage, boredom, anything normal. Instead, she felt an ache, an awareness, something she didn't have the language for. Downstairs, Jenny Thorne was a menace with a mission. She sauntered into Riley's office again, this time holding a peace offering, a muffin and a concerned look. Riley glared. Jenny placed the muffin on her desk anyway. Your energy is feral today. Even for you. Jenny, Riley warned. I'm just saying, Jenny chirped, leaning against the door frame. You've been vibrating at I might punch an executive frequency since you came from upstairs. Riley stared at her spreadsheet so hard she almost set it on fire. Jenny's smile sharpened. You saw her again, didn't you? Riley didn't look up. Which was an answer. Wow, Jenny whispered like she'd discovered a rare comet. The Ice Queen got you glitching. Riley's jaw ticked. Her hands trembled once, just once, before she locked them under the desk. It's nothing, she muttered. A glitch in the Matrix. Baby, that was not a glitch. That was a cosmic slap. Get out. Jenny threw her hands up dramatically. Fine. But I swear, if you combust in front of HR, I'm telling everyone it was love at first sight. Riley threw a pen. Jenny closed the door again. Silence returned. But the static stayed. Elena Quinn reached her breaking point first. Hours later, she stormed out of her office with a folder in hand, her heels clicking like judgment. Every employee she passed practically flattened themselves against walls. Her assistant scrambled after her. Miss Quinn, where are you? Finance. Should I warn them? No. The elevator ride was quiet. Too quiet. Elena felt the world narrowing, as if all the noise, all the people, all the responsibilities were blurring out. Only one thing cut through the fog. Not a thought. A pull. The doors opened. She stepped onto the finance floor, the air instantly colder, denser, like her presence had sucked all oxygen out of the space. People stiffened. Chairs squeaked. Silence swept. Elena didn't look at any of them. She looked only at the office at the end of the hall. Riley Bennett's office. Her pulse betrayed her. Quickened. Tightened. Thudded against her ribs like a fist demanding exit. She walked. Slow. Controlled. Each step deliberate, heels hitting tile like a countdown. When she reached Riley's door, she lifted her hand. Paused. Her breath caught. She almost knocked. Almost. Instead, she lowered her hand, exhaling sharp frost. No. Not yet. Not like this. She turned away, fast, cold, furious at herself. But she didn't leave. She stood in the middle of the finance floor, pulse wild, unable to move, unable to step closer, unable to step away. She whispered to herself, so quietly no one could hear. What is wrong with me? And through the thin office door, Riley Bennett lifted her head, sensing something electric, something cold, something familiar. Two storms. Two disasters. Orbiting each other without touching. Yet, Chapter 5, Fault Lines and Fractures. Riley Bennett knew the exact number of tiles on the finance floor. She'd counted them. Today she counted them twice, because looking anywhere else meant looking at her, and Riley refused to acknowledge the presence currently poisoning the oxygen of the entire department. Because Elena Quinn was still there. Not moving. Not speaking. Just existing with the gravitational force of a dying star. Riley sat stiffly behind her desk, staring at her screen, her hands hovering above the keyboard like she'd forgotten what fingers were. The pressure was unbearable. Like the air thickened, heavy with frost and lightning. Her pulse hammered so loud she swore Jenny could hear it through the glass walls. Jenny peeked into her office, mouth open, eyes wide, mouthing. She's here. Riley didn't look. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Because she felt Elena Quinn. Not saw her. Felt her, a presence coiled like a shadow in the center of the room. Her skin prickled. Her spine locked. Her world narrowed to two words. Don't look. She knew if she looked, everything would tilt. Again. Across the floor, Elena Quinn was unraveling. Quietly. She had no idea how long she'd been standing there. 5 seconds? 5 minutes? 5 years? Time was a cheap, useless concept in Riley Bennett's orbit. Elena told herself she was here for a reason, a legitimate reason. A misfiled report. A discrepancy. A finance-related emergency. Except she wasn't holding any report. Her hands were empty. And her mind? Her mind was chaos wrapped in ice. She'd almost knocked. Almost breached the quiet citadel Riley hid behind. But fear, a foreign, unwelcome emotion, stopped her. Elena Quinn did not fear. And that realization infuriated her. She exhaled sharply, a thin ghost of frost leaving her lungs. Move, she told herself. Take one step. Just one. She couldn't. Her traitor heart thudded again, too loud. Too human. She glared at Riley's office door like it had personally offended her. All around her, employees acted like statues afraid to breathe wrong. The temperature felt like winter had crawled out of her bones and seeped into the floor. One analyst whispered, "Is she broken?" Another whispered back, "I think she blue-screened." Elena ignored them. Her focus was a single point in space, the shadow behind the frosted glass door. Riley Bennett. The ghost who'd somehow haunted her into showing up here without a plan. Embarrassing. Unacceptable. Irresistible. Jenny Thorne, patron saint of chaos, decided she'd had enough. She stormed out of her cubicle, marched right up to Elena Quinn, the Elena Quinn, and cleared her throat with the bravery of someone who rescued stray pit bulls for fun. "Miss Quinn," she chirped. Elena turned her head slowly. Very slowly. Like a glacier acknowledging a fruit fly. Jenny swallowed. "Is there something we can help you with?" Elena blinked once. "I'm assessing." Her voice was ice-dipped steel. Assessing. What exactly? Elena's eyes flicked toward Riley's door. Just once. Barely a millimeter. But Jenny saw it. Of course she saw it. "Oh," Jenny breathed, the corner of her mouth twitching wickedly. "I see." Elena snapped her gaze back with lethal force. "You see nothing." Jenny smiled like she absolutely saw everything. Riley, from her office, could tell Jenny was about to make it worse. So much worse. She mouthed through the glass. "Don't." Jenny mouthed back. "Watch me." Riley panicked. Truly, deeply panicked. She stood up so fast her chair crashed to the floor behind her. The entire finance floor flinched. And Elena Quinn moved. Just a fraction, a shift of weight, a tilt of the head, but the air trembled with it. Riley marched out of her office, grabbed Jenny by the sleeve, and hissed, "Go. Away. Now." Jenny tried to whisper back, but Riley practically shoved her toward HR. And then she turned. And for the first time since the boardroom, since the elevator, since the universe began playing puppet master, Riley Bennett met Elena Quinn's eyes. Cold. Storm gray. Unreadable. But burning at the edges like frost catching fire. The world inverted. Riley froze mid-step, lungs locked. Elena's jaw tightened. Her fingers curled once. Her pulse tripped. Two women who avoided connection like plague suddenly locked in a gravity they couldn't outrun. The silent moment stretched taut, thin, dangerous. Someone coughed. Someone else dropped a pen. And without warning, Elena turned sharply on her heel and strode toward the elevators, fast, furious, as if fleeing her own reaction. Employees scattered like pigeons. The elevator doors slammed shut behind her. The cold lifted instantly. The pressure evaporated. But the damage was done. Riley stood in the center of the floor, arms stiff at her sides, heart pounding like she'd been chased through hell. Jenny peeked back around the corner. "What?" she whispered. "In the forbidden romance fanfic hell was that?" Riley shook her head, voice rough, barely audible. "I don't know." Jenny smirked. "But you want to?" Riley didn't answer. Because Jenny was right. And Riley hated that. Chapter 6. The edges begin to fray. The building seemed louder that morning. Phones ringing sharper. Keyboards clacking like teeth. The air vibrating with a tension no one could name, though two people felt it like a bruise. Riley arrived early, too early, under the excuse of catching up on work, but mostly to outrun her own thoughts. The elevator mirrors caught her reflection in shards, exhausted eyes, jaw tight, something unspoken coiling just beneath her skin. She set her laptop down and breathed in that hollow office silence, the kind that usually soothed her. Today it only made her chest tighter. Jenny walked in 10 minutes later with her usual storm of energy, but even she paused at Riley's expression. "You look like you slept in a boxing ring," Jenny said, dropping her bag. "I'm fine," Riley muttered. "You say that like a person who is absolutely not fine." Riley shot her a look sharp enough to cut, but Jenny wasn't intimidated. She'd learned to read the darkness like it was a second language. Jenny leaned against the desk, lowering her voice. "Is this about the new projection? The board meeting? Or something else?" Riley's breath hitched. Just enough for Jenny to catch. But Riley shook her head, burying everything under ice. "Work. It's just work." Jenny didn't believe her for a second, but she let it go for now. 3 floors up, Elena was losing control in much quieter ways. She'd snapped at her executive assistant twice before 9 a.m., not for mistakes, but for hesitating. Her pen had broken under her grip, and she'd rewritten the same sentence in her report so many times the letters blurred. Her ice was thinning, and nothing enraged her more. She stood at her office window, watching the city move below like ants in a maze. Usually her mind would run calculations or strategy. Today it ran in circles around one forbidden point. Riley. The memory of her voice. Of her eyes. Of that day in the boardroom, the storm Elena pretended didn't touch her. She closed her eyes for a moment she would never admit to needing. Ridiculous. Unprofessional. Weak. She inhaled sharply and returned to her desk. But the tremor in her hand betrayed her. The universe pulled the first thread. Around noon, a fire drill alarm blared unexpectedly, a system glitch, according to IT. Staff spilled into the stairwells like startled birds. Riley and Jenny were swept into the current of people heading down the stairs. 3 floors above, Elena exited her office, her frost biting through the corridor as she moved toward the same emergency exit. And fate, or chaos, or a cosmic joke too perfectly timed, guided them into the same stairwell. Riley froze at the landing. Elena stopped 3 steps above her. The sound of shuffling employees faded as they were caught in their own gravity. For a breath, neither moved. Neither blinked. Neither trusted their own pulse. Riley swallowed, her voice barely found. "Miss Quinn." "Riley," Elena said, softer than ice should allow. The stairwell hummed with fluorescent lights and something far older, far more dangerous. Jenny, standing beside Riley, sensed something she shouldn't be witnessing and whispered, "I'll catch up," before disappearing into the crowd. Leaving them alone. Elena stepped down one more stair. Riley's fingers curled at her sides. Neither reached. Neither spoke another word. They just stood there, 2 storms pretending to be contained, until the alarm finally cut off. The spell shattered. Reality returned. Elena straightened her jacket. Riley stepped aside, and they walked past each other like strangers with matching wounds. But the tether between them snapped taut, unbreakable, undeniable. Later, when the building settled, neither could focus. Riley kept replaying the moment, the soft way Elena said her name, the slight tremor in her breath. Elena kept replaying the moment, the way Riley looked up at her like a secret she wasn't ready to face. Both women stayed late. Both pretended it was for work. Both knew better. And both felt, with a quiet terror, that whatever this was, it had officially begun. Chapter 7. The world starts to notice. The sky bruised over with clouds by the time Riley entered the building the next morning. She told herself the storm rolling and had nothing to do with the one drifting behind her ribs, but denial could only stretch so far before it started to sound like a bad joke. She stepped into the lobby with her coffee, trying to mentally brace for another day of dodging shadows she secretly wanted to walk into. But the minute she tapped her access card at the turnstile, she felt it. A ripple. A presence. She looked up far too sharply, and there Elena was, gliding through the entrance like frost personified. Flawless. Untouchable. And just a shade too distracted for it to be normal. Riley's chest tightened. Her grip on the coffee cup nearly buckled. Elena didn't look her way, but Riley could swear the woman sensed her. The air between them always changed, thickening, cooling, humming like a wire about to snap. Riley forced herself forward. She didn't see Elena pause. She didn't see the tiny exhale the CEO allowed herself when Riley passed. But the security guard did. And his eyebrows nearly climbed off his face. Meanwhile, the department was whispering. Riley didn't notice it at first. The glances. The sudden shut-up quick conversations when she walked by. The way someone snickered near the printers and shoved another person with an elbow like they were passing a joke she wasn't meant to hear. It was Jenny who finally pulled the fire alarm in her composure. "Okay," Jenny said, dropping into Riley's office chair like she owned it. "What the hell is going on between you and Her Royal Glacial Highness?" Riley choked on her coffee. Actually choked. Jenny slapped her back. "See? That's guilt. That's what guilt sounds like." "There's nothing going on," Riley rasped, trying to regain dignity. "Oh please," Jenny said. The whole floor felt that stairwell moment yesterday. "You two came out looking like you survived an exorcism together." Riley's pulse skittered. "We just ran into each other." "Yes," Jenny said dryly. "And I just run into my crushes in stairwells and forget my personality for 20 minutes, too. Totally normal." Riley glared, cheeks warming. She hated that she couldn't hide the reaction. Darkness didn't blush, what the hell? She finally turned to her screen, hoping the conversation would die a merciful death. It didn't. Jenny lowered her voice. "Riley, you don't have to lie to me. Are you okay?" Riley froze. The concern in Jenny's voice disarmed her in ways she wasn't prepared for. "I'm fine," she whispered. Even she didn't believe it. Above in the building, Elena had her own reckoning. Her executive assistant entered with a stack of documents and a fragile kind of caution, as if approaching a wild animal mid-snarl. "Miss Quinn, the board moved your forecast meeting to Friday morning." Elena's jaw tightened. "Why?" "They want finance in the room earlier than usual. They said with the new figures, it's necessary." Elena stilled. Finance. That meant Riley. Her heartbeat betrayed her, too sharp, unsteady knocks against her ribs. She stared down at her pen, fingers tightening until the metal creaked. "Reschedule my 2 p.m., she said. "Yes, ma'am." The assistant hurried out. When the door shut, Elena let her shoulders drop for a fraction of a second. A single, unguarded breath. The truth she refused to voice echoed beneath her sternum. "I am losing control." She stood and crossed to the window, pressing a palm against the cool glass. The city looked stable, predictable, linear. Inside her, a slow, icy bloom of panic threatened to crack her clean down the middle. She hated it. Hated how one woman could disrupt everything she'd spent years perfecting. Why her? Why now? She didn't have the answers. Only the ache. The first slip happened at lunch. The cafeteria was busier than usual, buzzing with post-stairwell gossip no one would dare admit to. Riley walked in, tray in hand, trying to ignore the heat prickling along her spine. Elena entered moments later from the opposite side. They both froze. From across the room, their eyes locked unintentionally, unwillingly, unmistakably. And the cafeteria went silent. Just for a second. But long enough. Someone actually whispered, "Holy shit." Riley looked away first, heart hammering. Elena broke eye contact a beat later, jaw tightening like she'd been caught. Both women headed in separate directions, pretending nothing happened. But the silence that settled afterward wasn't silence at all. It was recognition. From them. From everyone. Something was happening. And the world had started to notice. By the end of the day, both were wrecked. Riley shut down her laptop with trembling fingers. Elena stayed late, rewriting the same paragraph 4 times. Neither woman slept that night. Their thoughts circled each other like wolves pacing a shared fence line. Hunger. Fear. Denial. Need. A tension that had outgrown every boundary they'd tried to build. Something was coming. And both felt it in their bones. Chapter 8. The Cost of Cracks. The next morning arrived like a blade, cold, decisive, unforgiving. Riley walked into the building feeling the weight of something unseen pressing on her shoulders. It wasn't just Elena anymore. It wasn't even the whispers. It was everything. Something was wrong in Synergex. She felt it in the air, thick, humming, like an electrical current looking for a place to arc. She tried to ignore it. She always tried. But today, the universe did not allow her the luxury of darkness as shield. The data breach. She was halfway through her first coffee when her entire department's monitors flickered. Then died. Every computer. Every terminal. Every screen. A collective gasp rolled through the floor like a wave. Riley shot to her feet. Her pulse dropped into that frightening, icy calm that only visited her in moments of crisis. "Everyone stay off the network," she barked. Her voice carried a steadiness she didn't feel. "Disconnect manually. Now." Jenny blinked, startled. "Riley, is this?" "Yes," Riley said. Whatever softness or humor she usually tolerated evaporated. "It's serious." Jenny obeyed instantly. Riley moved through the room, every step sharp, every breath measured. She didn't need to see the logs yet. The freeze in the system told her one thing. They were being hacked. And not by amateurs. Riley's mind raced. Synergex had competitors with teeth. Enemies with motives. Rivals who would kill for their proprietary analytics. The disturbance wasn't a metaphor anymore. It was happening. Elena felt it too. On the 16th floor, Elena stared at the emergency alert flashing across her tablet. Finance system failure. Security anomaly detected. Her blood went cold. Not because of the threat. Elena loved threats. Threats were solvable. But because the first thought that ripped through her chest wasn't. Is the company safe? It was. Is Riley safe? Her hand tightened around the tablet so hard a thin crack spiderwebbed across the edge. "Call IT." Elena snapped at her assistant. "No, call them to my office. And then get me the head of finance." Her assistant flinched. "Riley Bennett?" Elena's silence was answer enough. But inside, panic pulsed like wildfire under ice. If she's in danger, if someone is targeting her. The thought lodged itself in her throat, sharp as glass. No, she wouldn't allow that. Upstairs, the board smells blood. 2 board members sat in a glass conference room, unaware that their voices echoed into the hallway. Synergex can't afford another hiccup. Investors are watching. If Elena can't handle, she's losing her edge. We've all seen it. Finance is crumbling under her. Especially that department head. What's her name? Riley something. Riley Bennett. The name rolled off their tongues like something disposable. A problem. A scapegoat. A liability. Neither noticed that Elena had paused outside the doorway, hearing every word. Her expression did not change. But her eyes? A storm gathering. Riley goes rogue. Riley didn't wait for IT. She plugged directly into the proxy logs, fingers flying, hair falling into her face. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. And what she found froze her marrow. This wasn't a hack. It wasn't external. It was a breach from above. Someone with high-level credentials had accessed restricted financial models after hours. Someone inside the company. Someone with authority. Riley's mouth went dry. This isn't random. Something darker was moving beneath the surface. Old numbers. Old gaps. A pattern that made her stomach twist. She stood abruptly, chair scraping back. Jenny looked up with worried eyes. "Riley, what is it?" Riley didn't answer. She walked straight out of her office, her boots hitting the floor like war drums. She needed Elena. She hated that she needed Elena. She resented how her body already knew the path to her office. But this wasn't about emotion. This was about truth. And truth had just torn a hole in her life. The confrontation. Elena was halfway through barking orders at IT when Riley stormed into her office without knocking. Elena's head snapped up, and the world narrowed. Riley's chest rose and fell in sharp breaths. Her eyes burned with something fierce, electric, pulsing. Fear. Anger. Instinct. Elena felt her pulse spike. Fast, visceral, forbidden. "Close the door," Riley said. Her voice shook. Not with weakness. With fury. Elena nodded once. Slowly. Almost reverently. The door clicked shut. The moment it did, Riley threw a document on the desk. The breach wasn't external, she said. It came from inside Synergex. Elena's jaw clenched. "Explain." "High-level access," Riley said. "Too high." Someone with board authority is manipulating financial models. For the first time in years, Elena felt something dangerously close to fear grip her spine. "Who?" she asked. Riley stared at her. And in that moment, darkness met ice. Outside forces met internal fractures. Two women built from armor and ghosts found themselves standing at the edge of something they couldn't undo. "I don't know yet," Riley whispered. "But they're coming for you." Elena inhaled sharply. "And you?" The silence between them turned molten. A tether pulled taut. A storm sealing shut. The cost of cracks was rising. And neither woman was ready for what it would demand next. Chapter 9: The Storm Breaks. By the time Riley left Elena's office, the world had already shifted. She could feel it in the hiss of the vents, the hum of the fluorescent lights, the way the walls of Synergex suddenly felt closer, tighter, like the building itself was conspiring. Jenny trailed her cautiously, sensing the tension coiled around Riley like a living thing. "Do you want to tell me what just happened?" she asked. Riley didn't answer. Her fingers were tight around her tablet, knuckles white. The words in the file burned inside her. Breach. Insider. Manipulation. Board. She had a lead, and it pointed to the apex of power. And that meant Elena. Elena Quinn, ice fractured. Elena sat behind her glass desk, the city sprawled below like a muted painting. Her office, normally a haven of control, felt too small. Her pulse had settled, but only slightly. Riley's presence still lingered, like a ghost she couldn't exorcise. She glanced at the documents Riley had left behind. Every number, every access log, every anomaly pressed against her mind like a threat and a promise. Threat to the company, promise to the truth. Her fingers itched to reach for her phone. To make calls. To act. To protect. But part of her just wanted to find Riley again. The thought sent a shiver down her spine she would never admit. Instead, she did what she always did. She became the Ice Queen. Commanding. Sharp. Unyielding. Her eyes softened just slightly as she realized the storm outside was nothing compared to the one inside her chest. The board strikes. By mid-afternoon, the board convened an emergency meeting. The room reeked of polished wood and panic. Elena strode in, heels clicking like a metronome of inevitability. Riley followed, summoned by protocol. She walked in, boots echoing quietly, head held high despite the tension threading through her veins. Two predators, aligned by necessity, circling the same prey, the invisible enemy manipulating their company. The lead board member, an aging man with a crooked tie and a sharp tongue, spoke first. "The breach in finance is unacceptable. Miss Quinn, you are ultimately responsible. And Miss Bennett, your department's performance is under scrutiny." Riley's jaw tightened. Elena's eyes flickered, sharp as ice. Neither spoke. The room filled with whispers and tension, but their shared understanding was silent and unbreakable. "We handle this. Together." A dangerous proposal. After the board meeting, Elena cornered Riley in the corridor. Her breath hitched slightly. Not in fear. Not in weakness. But in anticipation. "We need to work together," she said. Immediately. No politics. No distractions. Just truth. Riley's eyes narrowed. "You're asking me to trust you?" Elena's lips twitched. "That's exactly what I'm asking." Riley's gaze flicked toward the stairs. To Jenny. To the hum of the office. Then back to Elena. And for a long, taut moment, the only sound was the pulse of their own hearts, synced in ways neither would admit. "Fine," Riley said finally. "But one wrong move and—" "I know," Elena interrupted, sharper than ice. "I don't make mistakes." But both knew that the one thing they couldn't control was already unraveling them from the inside. The first move. That evening, Riley worked alone in the finance office. Elena had left hours ago, her presence a ghost in the fluorescent glow. Then the lights flickered. Her monitors blinked. And a single message appeared on the screen, anonymous and chilling. "You're too late." Riley froze. The room felt suddenly smaller, tighter, like it was holding its breath with her. She typed, searched, cross-referenced, but the trace was clean. No sender. No IP. Nothing. Her heart raced. And she realized with cold clarity, the storm had started. Elena Quinn was the only one who could help her survive it. And neither of them would admit how much they needed each other. Outside, the city lights blinked like distant stars. Inside, two women built of ice and shadow were tethered to a force neither could escape, and neither wanted to. Chapter 10: Fire in the Dark. Riley didn't sleep. The warning on her screen replayed in her mind, a jagged rhythm, "You're too late." She worked through the night, scanning, tracing, chasing ghosts in code and logs. Every anomaly, every irregularity, pointed toward one truth. This was deliberate, targeted, and inside Synergex. By the time she arrived at the office the next morning, the city outside was just waking. Inside, the tension was a living thing, stretching every nerve in her body taut. Elena, Frost meets panic. Elena's office was silent when she arrived. Too silent. Her instincts screamed, even as she forced herself into her professional armor. The first clue came from IT. All terminals in finance went offline last night. Someone tried to cover their tracks, but there's a partial trace. Very sophisticated. Very dangerous, her lead tech said. Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. Trace it. The tech hesitated. It's complicated. Whoever did this knows what they're doing. Elena's heartbeat betrayed her. And for once, the ice inside her wasn't enough. Collision course. Riley entered the building, still in her hoodie, hair falling into her eyes, coffee gone cold. She saw the IT team huddled, murmuring. "Morning," she said, voice tight. "You found it." Elena's voice came from behind, controlled but sharp. Riley turned, chest tightening. The air between them felt electric, charged, dangerous, undeniable. "Yes," Riley said. "Partial access. The breach isn't just numbers. Someone is manipulating the entire financial backbone of the company. And they're doing it in real time." Elena's eyes narrowed. "And?" Riley swallowed. "And if we don't stop it immediately, the board will think we're incompetent. Investors will panic. And the company could collapse." Elena's jaw clenched. "Then we stop it." Her tone left no room for argument. But Riley felt it. The weight of her own heartbeat, echoing against Elena's controlled pulse. The plan. They worked in tandem, a dangerous dance of darkness and ice. Riley traced the breach. Elena coordinated the response. Each command, each keystroke, each decision heightened the tension between them, and neither could hide it. At one point, Riley leaned closer to Elena to point at a line of code. Their shoulders brushed. Their eyes met. Time slowed. The world outside disappeared. Elena's voice cut through the haze. "Focus." Riley exhaled sharply. "Right. Focus." And they did. For now. The first strike. By late afternoon, they identified the source, a hidden administrator account that shouldn't exist. Riley's fingers flew over the keyboard, isolating the access. Then the room went dark. All lights, monitors, systems dead. A voice, metallic and distorted, echoed through the speakers. "Too late. You can't stop what's coming." Riley froze, heart hammering. Elena stepped forward, fists clenched. For the first time, her ice showed a crack. "We're not letting this happen," she said, voice low, deadly. The hum in the office shifted. The air felt like static. The storm had arrived. The tether tightens. Riley and Elena turned to each other, the threat looming around them. No words. No hesitation. Just two forces recognizing a shared need. The breach was no longer just numbers. It was a test. Of skill. Of trust. Of the unspoken tether that had been building since their first encounter in the stairwell. Elena's hand brushed Riley's as they reached for the same terminal. Neither pulled away. Neither could. The storm was external. And internal. And now, they faced it together, bound by dark, ice, and something far more dangerous than either could admit. Chapter 11: Sparks in the Dark. The office lights flickered again, low and buzzing, casting everything in a sickly amber glow. Riley's fingers hovered over her tablet, eyes scanning logs, every nerve coiled tight. Jenny hovered near the doorway, silent, sensing the storm, but smart enough to stay out of the line of fire. Then the elevator pinged. Elena stepped out, heels clicking against the polished floor, calm, controlled, and impossibly dangerous. Riley's chest caught, breath quickening. Every instinct screamed at her, "Do not fall into this." She didn't listen. A moment too close. Elena strode to her desk, brushing past Riley, close enough for the warmth of her presence to hit her like a wave. Riley felt it. Felt it deep in the ribs, under the ice she'd wrapped around herself for years. "Elena," she said, voice tight. "Status?" "Contained, for now," Elena replied, eyes scanning the monitors. Her tone was all business, but her gaze lingered on Riley longer than strictly necessary. Riley's fingers itched, not at the tablet, but at the brush of their proximity, the magnetic pulse she couldn't name. The enemy moves. Suddenly, an alert pinged across every terminal. A new breach. This time, it wasn't subtle. The entire financial system was at risk of being overwritten. Riley's jaw tightened. "Elena, we need to lock it down now." Elena moved to her side, over her shoulder, commanding, precise. Two minds, one mission, and something unspoken humming between them. The breach was sophisticated, targeted, personal. Someone knew the vulnerabilities in both the company and in them. And Riley realized this wasn't just professional. It was a warning, a test, a threat to both of them. Tension ignites. In the heat of the moment, Riley's hand brushed Elena's against the keyboard. It was a spark, electric, undeniable. A ripple they both tried to ignore. "Careful," Elena said, voice low, almost a growl. Riley swallowed, heat rising in her chest. "I always am," she murmured, barely audible. The air thickened, charged with danger and desire, a current that neither could fully control. The breach was not just outside. It was between them. And inside them. The first admission. Minutes later, after shutting down the rogue access and stabilizing the system, they stood side by side. Breathless. Tense. Wounded. Powerful. Neither spoke. The silence was a language in itself. Finally, Elena broke it. "You're reckless," she said, softer than ice should ever allow. Riley met her gaze, unflinching. "And you're vulnerable," she whispered back. Both froze. The words hung between them, incendiary, undeniable. No walls. No shields. For the first time, they were raw. The storm wasn't just around them anymore, it was inside them. Chapter 12, Shadows Unleashed. The night pressed against Synergex like a living thing, the city lights outside casting long, trembling shadows across the financial floor. Riley's eyes never left her tablet, scanning every line of code, every anomaly. The office was empty, but she didn't feel alone. A soft click made her spin. Elena was there, standing in the doorway, silhouette sharp against the pale glow of the emergency lights. "You left the perimeter unsecured," Elena said, voice flat, but her eyes betrayed the storm inside. Riley swallowed, heat creeping up her neck. "I thought I had it contained." Elena stepped closer, heels clicking against the floor, deliberate, measured. "You didn't. Someone's inside. Someone's coming for us." Riley's stomach twisted. Her pulse spiked, not from fear, at least not entirely, but from the magnetism of being this close to Elena Quinn. The first breach in person. Before either could react, the security alarm shrieked, a piercing wail that made the walls feel alive. Riley's tablet blinked red. Multiple unauthorized logins. Elena moved like liquid ice, swift and precise, pulling Riley behind her as the emergency lights painted the office in stark white. From the shadows, figures emerged, masked, silent, deadly. Riley's combat instincts surged. She dropped into a crouch, tablet in hand, ready to hack, block, reroute. Elena drew herself tall, the Ice Queen reborn in battle posture. Her gaze was sharp, cold, but with a fire Riley hadn't expected. The storm had arrived. Tethered by necessity. They moved as one, instinctual. Riley's fingers danced across the keyboard, rerouting systems, locking doors, sounding alarms. Elena's voice cut through the chaos. "Left corridor. Now." They darted through shadows, hearts hammering, muscles taut. Every brush of contact between them sent a current through Riley she couldn't name. Elena's presence was a force, grounding and igniting her all at once. They fought the intruders silently, efficiently, every movement a testament to skill and growing trust. And yet, in the midst of chaos, something unspoken hummed between them, a tether tighter than any protocol, any corporate boundary, any fear they tried to cling to. The close call. One intruder lunged at Riley, blade raised. Elena was faster, knocking the attacker aside with precise force. Riley's breath caught. "Thanks," she whispered, voice rough. Elena's eyes met hers, unflinching. "You'd have done the same." Riley's chest rose and fell. She wanted to argue, to deny. But the storm in her chest mirrored the storm outside, wild, uncontrollable, undeniable. The last intruder retreated, vanishing into the shadows. They were alone again. For now. Aftermath in the silence. Riley sank into a chair, adrenaline still coursing. Elena leaned against the desk, the tiniest exhale betraying the storm she carried beneath her composed exterior. Neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. The office smelled of metal, ozone, and something else, something like promise, danger, and the pull of something neither wanted but both needed. Riley's eyes met Elena's. For a long moment, the world outside ceased to exist. And in the silence, they understood something dangerous and wonderful. The storm wasn't just outside. It was between them. And it would not be tamed. Chapter 13, When Darkness Meets Ice. The office was quiet again, eerily so. Riley sat slouched over her tablet, eyes scanning numbers and code, but her mind wasn't on the system anymore. It was on Elena. Elena, leaning against the desk, arms crossed, commanding as ever, but with a softness in her eyes Riley hadn't seen before. "Do you ever sleep?" Elena asked, voice low, teasing, dangerous. Riley didn't look up immediately. "I don't have time for sleep," she muttered. Her pulse betrayed her, a fast, uneven drum she tried to ignore. "You're lying," Elena said, stepping closer, heels clicking softly against the floor. "You've been running on adrenaline, fear, and maybe something else I can't name." Riley finally met her gaze. Her dark eyes were fire contained in shadow. "I have everything under control," she said, voice sharp, but the tremor in it betrayed the lie. Elena's lips curved. "Do you?" The magnetic pull. For a moment, the office felt suspended in time. Electric. Taut. Dangerous. Riley's fingers twitched on the tablet, wanting to reach out, touch, anchor herself to the presence that had infiltrated her meticulously dark world. Elena moved closer, closing the space between them, every step deliberate. The ice she wore was thin, and Riley could see the heat beneath it, threatening to break through. "You're reckless," Elena whispered, almost to herself. "And you're tempting," Riley shot back without thinking. The words hung in the air like sparks, and both froze, hearts hammering. The storm outside hadn't calmed. The storm inside was roaring. The first edge of surrender. Elena tilted her head, studying Riley as though trying to read her soul. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to me?" she said, voice a dangerous mixture of control and surrender. Riley's chest tightened. "I could ask you the same," she breathed. The electricity between them was undeniable, and neither could hide it anymore. For the first time, both were aware that the tether wasn't just professional, it was primal, intimate, and terrifying. And then, without warning, the lights flickered. The emergency system had detected another intrusion, smarter, faster, closer. Riley's hands flew to the keyboard again, training her focus outward, but her mind kept drifting to Elena's nearness. Elena's gaze stayed on her, unrelenting, commanding, almost protective. Danger and desire collided. Two storms in one room. The dangerous truth. "Riley," Elena said, voice low, urgent, her hand brushing accidentally against Riley's as they both reached for the same terminal. Riley's breath caught. "Don't," she whispered. Elena smirked, just slightly. "Don't what?" "Don't make me care," Riley admitted, the words almost a confession. Elena's eyes softened, but the edge never left her. "I already do," she said, a whisper meant only for Riley. And in that moment, The external storm, the breach, the intruders, the danger, faded just slightly. Because inside that office, dark had finally met ice. And neither woman would ever be the same. Chapter 14: Collision Course. The office was a war zone. Not from walls collapsing or smoke, but from the quiet, insidious invasion of systems, the hum of alarms, and the sudden sharp edge of every shadow. Riley's hands flew across the tablet, coding, rerouting, isolating. Her heartbeat was a drum of adrenaline and something hotter, fiercer, something she couldn't name. Elena stood over her, calm, controlled, the Ice Queen incarnate, yet there was tension in the way her jaw flexed, the slight flare of her nostrils, the intensity in her storm-gray eyes. They were two predators in perfect synchronization, yet every brush of skin, every shared glance, ignited a current neither could suppress. The threat becomes real. A sudden ping on the security feed made them both jump. Figures, masked, moving with lethal precision, were inside the building. Riley's stomach clenched. "Security breach, floor 5, she said, voice clipped. Elena moved instantly, body taut, a predator gliding through shadows. "Get ready," she ordered. Together, they navigated the maze of corridors, footsteps silent, senses sharp. The closer they got to the intruders, the more their tether tightened, every movement a wordless conversation of trust, anticipation, and something dangerously close to desire. They cornered the intruders in a server room. Riley activated the lockdown, metal doors clanging shut with a metallic finality. Elena's presence was right behind her, heat brushing her back, heartbeat pressing against her shoulder. The attackers lunged, fast and precise. Riley ducked, Elena struck with the fluid grace of ice-cutting glass. Riley's hands flew across the controls, rerouting power, shutting down doors, isolating threats. Elena fought, every strike a demonstration of control, strength, and lethal precision. And in the chaos, Riley felt the pull, magnetic, electric, between them, impossible to ignore. The first confession. When the intruders retreated into the night, leaving a trail of chaos, but no bodies, Riley slumped against the console, sweat and adrenaline coating her skin. Elena's hand rested lightly on her arm, not commanding, not controlling, just a touch. Riley's breath hitched. "You're insane," Elena whispered, voice low, almost a growl. Riley met her gaze, unflinching, heat pooling in her chest. "And you're irresistible," she said. Elena's lips twitched, the barest hint of a smile. "I already know," she said, voice softening, almost confessional. For the first time, both of them acknowledged the fire that had been simmering beneath ice and shadow, danger and protocol. The storm outside wasn't over. But the storm inside, the one that tethered them, bound them, dared them, had just ignited. Chapter 15: The Pressure Builds. The office was silent now, but the tension was deafening. Riley leaned back in her chair, eyes fixed on the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Numbers, charts, spreadsheets, they were never just numbers tonight. They were the battleground. Every misstep, every miscalculation, every overlooked anomaly could bring the company to its knees. Elena stood a few feet away, hands folded behind her back, ice in her stance, but fire in her gaze. She didn't need to say a word. Riley felt her presence like a gravity pull. "You're late," Elena said softly, almost teasing, almost dangerous. Riley didn't look up. "I've been here all night. You just didn't notice." Elena smiled faintly, an edge of amusement in the sharp lines of her face. "I always notice." Riley's pulse quickened, heat creeping up her neck. She turned slightly, just enough to meet Elena's storm-gray eyes. The room shrank, the world outside disappeared, and suddenly the spreadsheets, the budget forecasts, the anomalies, they didn't matter as much as the woman standing across from her. Numbers and shadows. The real breach wasn't physical, it was financial. Someone inside had been manipulating accounts, rerouting funds, creating phantom expenditures, and covering tracks with layers of deception so intricate that it would take weeks to untangle. Riley clicked through the data, lines of code and balance sheets blurring together. Her mind raced, piecing together patterns, following traces, anticipating every move of someone who had thought they were clever. Elena leaned over her shoulder, pointing at a line in the spreadsheet. "You see this?" she asked, voice steady, authoritative. Riley nodded. "Yeah, that's the entry that doesn't belong. Whoever did this was sloppy at the very end. They left a breadcrumb." "Good," Elena said. "Trace it. And Riley, don't let them see us sweat." Riley's lips twitched. "We're the only ones in the office." Elena's eyes darkened ever so slightly. "Then make it convincing." The tether tightens. As they worked side by side, a rhythm formed, silent, intense, perfect. Every glance, every shared nod, every whispered observation carried weight. Neither wanted to admit it, but the storm that had brought them together in those first meetings was no longer just professional. It was personal, magnetic, and it demanded attention. Riley's fingers brushed against Elena's as they both reached for the same spreadsheet. She froze, pulse racing. Elena didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned just slightly closer, enough that Riley could feel the warmth radiating off her body, the faint scent of her perfume mixing with the sterility of the office. "I can't let myself," Riley started, but Elena's eyes cut through the words, sharp and knowing. "Don't fight it," Elena whispered. "Not yet." The first breakthrough. Hours passed, tension building, numbers and anomalies stacking like storm clouds. Finally, Riley exhaled. She had found the pattern, the hidden accounts, the diversion of funds. The intruder had been clever, but they hadn't anticipated Riley Bennett. Elena glanced over, her expression unreadable. Then, just for a moment, her lips curved in something almost like approval. "You're brilliant," she said softly, voice low, intimate. Riley met her gaze, heartbeat loud, throat tight. "We make a good team," she said, words careful but truthful. For the first time, both women allowed themselves to recognize it. The tether, the pull, the storm that had been simmering for weeks was no longer subtle. It was roaring. Outside, the city lights blinked in rhythm with their pulse. Inside, two forces of ice and shadow had found their equilibrium, not through battle, but through brilliance, danger, and unspoken desire. Chapter 16. The Calm Before. The office was quiet, eerily quiet, except for the hum of monitors and the faint click of keyboards. Riley leaned back in her chair, stretching her shoulders, exhaustion crawling in, but adrenaline still thrumming in her veins. She had traced every anomaly, locked down the phantom accounts, and sealed the breach. Synergex was safe for now. Elena remained standing near the window, looking out at the city lights. Her posture was rigid, composed, but Riley could see the faint tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw flexed. Ice and control, but barely enough to contain the heat beneath. "You did it," Elena said finally, voice low, almost a murmur. Riley's fingers stilled. "We did it," she corrected. Elena turned, meeting her gaze. Storm gray eyes, unreadable, dangerous, magnetic. Riley felt the pull again, the tether, stronger now, almost painful. The tension between numbers and desire. Riley returned to her tablet, pretending to be absorbed in work, but she wasn't. Her mind kept replaying Elena's presence, the way her voice had softened, the subtle heat that lingered when she leaned too close, the brush of their hands on shared spreadsheets. Elena approached, leaning over Riley's chair, tracing a line of numbers on the screen with her finger. Their proximity was electric. "You're meticulous," Elena said softly. "But brilliant." Riley's chest tightened. "You're intimidating," she countered, voice low, trembling just slightly. Elena's lips twitched in something close to a smile. "Am I?" she said, voice smooth, teasing, dangerous. The room seemed to shrink around them, the hum of the computers fading into background noise. All that remained was heat, tension, and the silent admission neither was ready to voice. An unspoken agreement. Hours passed. They worked side by side, tackling the remnants of the breach, reviewing logs, double-checking every system. Every shared glance, every accidental brush of hands, every subtle gesture deepened the pull between them. Neither spoke about it. Neither needed to. The tether was taut, alive, undeniable. When Riley finally closed her tablet, leaning back with a sigh, she caught Elena's gaze once more. "You need rest," Elena said, tone almost commanding, but softer than usual. "I'll rest later," Riley replied, tone equally defiant. Elena's eyes softened, just slightly. "Don't let your darkness consume you entirely," she murmured. Riley's lips twitched, almost a smile. "And don't let your ice melt entirely." The words hung between them, delicate, dangerous, charged. The storm lingers. The breach had been contained, the danger neutralized. But the storm, the one between them, was far from over. It wasn't about numbers anymore. It wasn't about spreadsheets or accounts. It was about the tether, the pull, the dark and ice that refused to be denied. And neither Riley nor Elena could ignore it. The storm was calm, but the pressure was rising. Chapter 17: When Ice Burns. The office was empty now, lights dimmed to a soft amber, monitors casting pale glows over papers and spreadsheets. Riley sat at her desk, posture rigid, fingers hovering over her tablet. She wasn't working. She was waiting. Waiting for the pull, the spark, the storm that had been building for weeks. Elena appeared silently in the doorway, a silhouette of perfection against the fading light. Heels clicking softly, a predator in heels, ice, and authority. "You're still here," Elena said, voice low, teasing, dangerous. Riley's pulse jumped, heartbeat louder than the hum of the office. "So are you." A silence stretched between them, taut and electric. Neither moved, yet the world felt like it had narrowed to just the two of them. The first collision. Elena stepped closer, just enough that Riley could feel the warmth radiating off her. Every rule they had, the distance, the control, the ice, was fragile now, cracking under the weight of the tether. "You're reckless," Elena whispered, voice almost a growl, not at Riley, but at the pull between them. "And you're irresistible," Riley shot back without thinking, her voice low, charged. Their eyes locked, neither breaking, both aware of the spark, the fire that had been simmering for weeks. The calm had ended. The silent admission. Elena's hand hovered near Riley's, inches from touching, but both knew that distance was an illusion. "I can't," Elena started, then stopped, frustration flashing across her storm-gray eyes. "Neither can I," Riley said, voice barely audible, heart hammering. The words were dangerous, unguarded, explosive. For the first time, they admitted it, not to the world, not in spreadsheets or reports, but to each other. Elena's hand finally brushed Riley's, a feather-light touch that sent a shockwave through both of them. The edge of surrender. They stood, bodies close, breaths mingling, neither daring to break the tension. The storm outside, financial threats, intrusions, pressure, faded into insignificance. It wasn't about the office anymore. It wasn't about protocol, ice, or shadows. It was about them. Desire, danger, and something deeper, need, tether, fire in the dark, pulled them together. Riley's voice was a whisper. "I don't know how to stop this." Elena's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability cutting through the ice. "Maybe we shouldn't." The room seemed tea. Chapter 18: The Storm Ignites. The office was quiet. Too quiet. The faint hum of computers was the only sound, but inside the room, the storm was deafening. Riley sat rigid in her chair, eyes fixed on her tablet, but she wasn't reading numbers. She was acutely aware of Elena standing just a few feet away, heels clicking softly, presence magnetic, ice laced with heat. "You're tense," Elena said, voice low, teasing, but not unkind. Riley's chest tightened. "I'm fine," she muttered, but the lie tasted bitter even to her own ears. Elena's eyes softened, storm-gray and piercing. "Do you want to be?" she asked. Riley's fingers stilled on the tablet. The air between them felt like it could ignite at any second. The first step. Elena closed the distance, slow, deliberate, giving Riley time to retreat, but Riley didn't. She wanted this, though she'd never admit it aloud. Their eyes locked, unflinching, and in that gaze, everything unspoken between them throbbed. Tension, desire, frustration, and need. "You can't control it forever," Elena whispered, stepping so close that Riley could feel the warmth radiating off her. "I don't want to," Riley admitted, voice low, almost a growl, her pulse hammering. The tether, once invisible, was now undeniable, magnetic, electric, unavoidable. The magnetic collision. Riley's hand brushed against Elena's as she reached for the same folder. Neither pulled away. Neither moved, yet the current between them was palpable, thrumming wild. Elena. Riley's voice faltered, her defiance melting under the heat of proximity. Riley. Elena's voice was husky, intimate, dangerous. Don't fight it. Their breaths mingled. The storm in their veins matched the storm they had both fought outside the office. But this was theirs, private, consuming. For a moment, the world disappeared. The city lights, the spreadsheets, the alarms, they all faded into insignificance. All that remained was the pole, the dark, and the ice. The edge of surrender. Riley's heart raced, her body taut with anticipation. Elena's hand slid lightly over hers, teasing, testing, claiming. I can't, Riley began, but Elena's finger pressed to her lips, stopping the words. Then don't, Elena whispered, voice low and commanding. Just feel it. Riley exhaled slowly, surrendering not to words, but to the storm between them. The tension, the tether, the magnetic pull, it was more than either could resist. And for the first time, both women let the storm take over, letting dark and ice collide in the silent, electric intimacy of proximity, of need, of desire unspoken but undeniable. Chapter 19: Sparks and Shadows. The office was buzzing with the aftermath of the financial breach being sealed. Staff whispered in corners, eyes darting toward Riley and Elena, though neither acknowledged the scrutiny. Riley sat at her desk, still tense, fingers tapping lightly on the tablet, eyes occasionally flicking toward Elena, who stood by the window, storm-gray eyes scanning the city. Jenny appeared, bright and beaming like a sudden sunbeam breaking through fog. Riley, you look exhausted, but also suspiciously glowy. Did someone spike your coffee with adrenaline, or, she paused, eyeing Elena, or is this a new power source I need to know about? Riley stiffened, a flush creeping over her cheeks. Just tired, she muttered, voice clipped. Jenny smirked knowingly, leaning against the edge of Riley's desk. Tired, sure. And you, Miss Ice Queen, she said, spinning toward Elena with a grin. I see you hovering like a storm cloud over our little financial genius. Everything okay, or are we officially in danger of heartbreak, LLC? Elena raised an eyebrow, storm-gray eyes meeting Jenny's with a trace of amusement. Everything is under control. Jenny laughed, unconvinced. Right. Totally under control. Because nothing says under control like standing 5 feet from someone and radiating heat waves. Riley's fingers froze mid-tap, glancing between Elena and Jenny, her dark humor silently appreciating Jenny's candor and simultaneously dreading it. The tether acknowledged. Jenny leaned closer, lowering her voice. Riley, I've known you long enough to see when your brain is doing cartwheels and your heart's trying to escape your chest. And yes, I see it. I see the Ice Queen staring at you like she wants to rewrite the office rules entirely. Admit it. You feel it too. Riley's eyes flicked toward Elena, who pretended not to notice the conversation, but Riley could see the corner of her lips twitch. I don't, Riley began, but Jenny cut her off with a knowing shake of her head. You totally do, Jenny said, tapping Riley's tablet with a dramatic flourish. And, before you panic, don't. You've survived spreadsheets, intruders, and corporate chaos. You can survive this too. But just, maybe stop hiding behind numbers for 5 seconds, yeah. Riley's lips twitched, almost a smile. She glanced at Elena, whose eyes softened for just a fraction of a second, a silent acknowledgement of the storm Jenny had just articulated. A moment shared. Elena finally broke her silent vigil, stepping closer to Riley with deliberate grace. Are you really listening to your friend? She asked, voice low, teasing, dangerous. Riley's heart thumped. Maybe, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Jenny clapped her hands dramatically. Admission. Step 1 complete. Step 2. Survival of sanity and office dignity, while not combusting in the presence of, she gestured between them, this energy. Step 3. Optional but recommended coffee. And maybe chocolate. Or something stronger. Elena's lips twitched into the smallest curve of amusement, while Riley's chest loosened, tension easing slightly with Jenny's interference, a bridge between dark and ice, humor and honesty, chaos and desire. The calm with a spark. As Jenny moved off to rescue another unsuspecting colleague from the spreadsheet labyrinth, Riley and Elena remained near the window, silent now, letting the words and laughter linger in the air. The storm between them hadn't diminished, it had shifted. It was no longer just heat and tension. It was now acknowledgement. Recognition. A tether strengthened by honesty, by shared danger, and, surprisingly, by the sunshine of a third party who refused to let them ignore it. Riley exhaled softly. She's relentless. Elena's lips curved into a faint, rare smile. And invaluable, she admitted, eyes softening on Riley. In that moment, the world outside the office, the spreadsheets, the pressures, the city lights, faded. What remained was them, the storm, and the tether that refused to be ignored. Chapter 20. Crossing the Line. The office had emptied. Floor lamps cast pools of light over polished surfaces, and the city hummed quietly beyond the glass. Riley sat at her desk, tablet dimmed, fingers still hovering over the edge. She wasn't working, she was waiting, or maybe she didn't know what she was doing at all. Elena stepped inside, heels silent, ice in her posture, but fire in her eyes. She closed the door softly behind her. You're still here, she said, voice low, calm, deliberate. Riley lifted her gaze, meeting storm-gray eyes that both intimidated and called to her. I could ask the same, she whispered, trying for control, failing spectacularly. Elena's lips twitched. I can't leave. Not yet. The first step beyond. Elena approached slowly, giving Riley time to retreat, but Riley didn't. The tether, the pull they had ignored for weeks, was unbearable now. You feel it too, Elena murmured, close enough that Riley could feel the warmth of her presence, the faint perfume lingering in the air. Riley's pulse surged, breath hitching. I can't fight it anymore, she admitted, voice low, raw. The words hung in the air like an electric current. Elena's hand lifted, tentative, hovering near Riley's. Riley leaned in slightly, closing the distance herself. The room shrank to just the two of them, the world outside forgotten. The collision. Their hands touched, lightly at first, then with more certainty. Heat pooled in the space between them, filling the silent office with a storm no spreadsheet could contain. You're reckless, Elena whispered, lips inches from Riley's, eyes blazing. And you're irresistible, Riley shot back, the words leaving her mouth before she could stop them. Elena's lips curved, soft, knowing, dangerous. Good. Because I won't hold back either. The first brush of lips was gentle, exploratory, questioning, tasting the storm they'd both carried for weeks. But the second, the one that followed, was dark meeting ice, tension dissolving into need, the tether snapping taut, binding them in a silent, electric promise. Jenny's light presence still lingered in Riley's memory, the teasing, the laughter, the acknowledgement that the storm had been visible to everyone but them. Riley thought of Jenny and smiled faintly against Elena's lips, remembering the friend who had always known her heart better than she did herself. Elena's hand slid to Riley's waist, holding her closer. You think too much, Elena murmured. I feel too much, Riley admitted, voice muffled, truth spilling in the intimate space. And in that confession, the office, the night, the spreadsheets, they all fell away. The storm unleashed. There was no going back. The tether had been crossed, the pull acknowledged, and for the first time, dark and ice existed in perfect, dangerous equilibrium. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Inside, two forces, irreversibly drawn to one another, finally collided, and nothing would ever be the same. Chapter 21. After the storm. The morning light crept through the blinds, slicing the office into pale bars. Riley sat at her desk, hands folded tightly over her tablet, staring at the screen without really seeing it. Every spreadsheet, every figure, every projected outcome was suddenly meaningless compared to the storm that had consumed the night. Elena, seated a few feet away, adjusted her jacket with precision, posture perfect, but the slight tremor in her hand betrayed her. Ice, yes, but brittle now, fragile around Riley. Neither spoke. The silence was heavy, thick with electricity and unsaid words. The awkwardness of dark and ice. Jenny breezed into the office like a whirlwind of color, unaware of the simmering tension. Morning world. Who's ready for spreadsheets, corporate domination, and probably caffeine overdoses? Riley flinched. Elena's eyes met hers, both acknowledging Jenny's oblivious brilliance. Morning, Jenny, Riley muttered, voice flat, gaze glued to her tablet. Jenny leaned over Riley's desk, peering at her screen. Ooh, looks serious. What's happening? Another budget attack? Another. Evil spreadsheet rebellion. Riley's lips twitched. No, she said, tone clipped. All quiet on the financial front. Jenny's gaze flicked to Elena, sharp and knowing. And you, Miss Quinn? Looking less. Ice Queen, more. Flustered queen of the world. Elena's jaw tightened imperceptibly. I am always composed, she said, voice smooth, controlled, but Jenny's smirk told her she was already caught. Bridging the silence. Hours passed. Riley typed and calculated. Elena reviewed and approved, but their eyes found each other too often, lingering too long, each glance a silent negotiation of power, desire, and fear. At one point, Riley's tablet slipped slightly, brushing against Elena's hand. Neither pulled away. Careful, Elena murmured, voice low, teasing, but there was vulnerability underneath the ice. I'm careful, Riley whispered back, heart hammering, pulse thrumming with the memory of the storm. The tension was palpable, but neither could speak it aloud. Not yet. Jenny, the unwitting oracle. Jenny wandered back later, holding 2 mugs of coffee, setting one gently in front of Riley and one in front of Elena. Here. You two look like you've been surviving a hurricane in your own heads. Coffee fixes everything, sometimes even ice queens and dark nights. Riley blinked. Elena's storm gray eyes met hers, both silently daring, both amused, both unsettled. Jenny tilted her head, grin teasing. You two are ridiculous. And yes, I see it. Stop pretending your brains are spreadsheets and your hearts are locked filing cabinets. You're basically radiating tension, and it's giving me anxiety. Riley's lips twitched. Elena's eyes darkened ever so slightly with amusement and acknowledgement. The quiet understanding. As Jenny left, humming something oblivious to the chaos she'd left in her wake, Riley exhaled softly. Elena leaned back in her chair, watching her with the same storm-gray gaze that had ignited the tether. This is awkward, Elena admitted, voice low. Riley chuckled, faint, almost brittle. We're not used to it. No, Elena agreed, a trace of a smile curving her lips. But maybe that's the point. And in that quiet, awkward aftermath, both women realized the storm wasn't over, it had simply shifted. From darkened ice to something slower, deeper, magnetic, and dangerously impossible to ignore. Chapter 22 Ice and Dark Learn to Dance. The office smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. Riley sat in the corner, dark hoodie still draping her frame like armor, tablet closed but forgotten. Her mind wasn't on numbers. It was on Elena, storm-gray eyes, poised posture, and that small, imperceptible curve of a smile that had haunted her since the kiss. Elena, impeccably dressed, walked past Riley's office, heels clicking softly, and paused and stepped inside. She leaned casually against the edge of Riley's workstation. So, Elena said, voice low, teasing, are we doing this? Experimenting with whatever this is. Riley blinked, trying not to betray the surge of thrill in her chest. We could, she said carefully, but we have rules. Boundaries. Grounding. Elena's lips curved in the faintest smirk. Of course. Rules first. Ice always in control. Darkness. Reluctantly agreeing, Riley shot back, eyes glinting. The awkward first steps. Their first date, if you could call it that, was subtle. Lunch in the quiet corner of a city cafe, both aware of each other's posture, the tension in how they sat, how they sipped coffee. Elena's precision was flawless. Small movements, minimal words, calculating charm. But Riley noticed the little cracks, the almost smiles, the tiny hesitations that gave away the human beneath the Ice Queen exterior. Riley, dark and brooding, seemed almost effortless at distance, but up close, under Elena's gaze, her usual shadows softened, her dark humor peeked out, and her hidden warmth whispered beneath the hoodie. "You're surprisingly good at this," Riley admitted, voice low, eyes scanning Elena's face. Elena raised an eyebrow. "Good at dating?" "Yes," Riley said, smirk tugging at her lips. "Hidden under all the ice and authority, you're actually charming. Human, even." Elena's lips twitched. "I could say the same about you," she murmured. "Dark and brooding, but unexpectedly witty. And surprisingly patient. For someone who hides." The moment stretched, charged, both of them realizing the paradox. Beneath the darkened ice, they were both adept at this, just hidden under layers of control, tension, and personal rules. The magnetic pull. Their hands brushed accidentally or deliberately, neither could say for sure. And when they did, the tether responded, magnetic, alive, undeniable. "You feel it too," Riley said softly. "I do," Elena admitted, voice low, rough with honesty. They laughed then, small and genuine, the first time since the storm had begun that the tension didn't sting, but warmed. Jenny's voice echoed in Riley's memory, teasing and insistent. "Stop hiding. You're ridiculous. You're perfect together if you stop being idiots." A dance begins. The day ended, both returning to their offices, but the air between them was changed. They had crossed from tether to tentative connection, from dark and ice at war to dark and ice learning to dance. Neither admitted it aloud, but the spark was alive and active. A pull that refused to be ignored. Elena glanced at Riley, storm gray eyes softer now. "This could work," she said quietly. Riley tilted her head, dark hair brushing her cheek, a smirk hiding beneath shadows. "Yeah, it might." And for the first time, both women allowed themselves to imagine a storm that didn't just consume but sustained. Chapter 23: Experiments in Dark and Ice. Riley sat at her desk, dark hoodie shielding her like armor, but today she couldn't focus on spreadsheets. She kept replaying their first official date, the stolen glances, the tentative touches, the laughter that felt like sunlight breaking through the shadows. Elena appeared, impeccably dressed, heels clicking like a metronome, the storm in her eyes now tempered with a trace of amusement. "Lunch?" Elena asked, voice low, teasing. "Or are we going to pretend this doesn't exist in front of the rest of the office?" Riley hesitated, scanning the floor. "We should be careful. HR is still vigilant." Elena's lips twitched. "Careful? Since when are we careful?" Riley's smirk was dark, wicked, but she nodded. "Since HR exists and you're the CEO, remember? HR, watching from afar." Meanwhile, somewhere in HR, Penelope Graves, the ever-watchful HR manager, was already filing a mental note. Riley Bennett and Elena Quinn. Proximity, extended lunches, office smiles that are way too intimate. "I will be keeping an eye on this," she muttered, clicking her pen. HR's vigilance was not lost on either of them, though neither acknowledged it openly. Instead, they danced around it, subtle, controlled, but the tether between them hummed louder with every passing hour. The awkward flourish. Their lunch was silent at first, filled with stolen glances, hands brushing lightly over the table, and the kind of tension only a tether can create. Riley finally spoke, voice low, careful. "So, this dating thing, it's, weirdly, easier than I expected." Elena raised an eyebrow, amused. "Easier?" "Yes," Riley admitted. "We're good at it. Hidden under all the darkness and ice, we're competent humans." Elena's lips curved in a rare smile. "I knew there was a reason I didn't kill you the first week I noticed you." Riley snorted softly, a laugh almost escaping. "Oh, you'd planned that?" "Subtle." Elena's storm gray eyes softened. "Not planned, observed." But now, she leaned slightly closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "We're experimenting. And HR is watching," Riley added, a wicked glint in her dark eyes. the tether in motion. After lunch, back at their respective desks, the tether pulsed between them, subtle but alive. Every glance, every accidental touch over shared reports was a reminder. Dark and Ice didn't just clash, they complemented. Riley tapped her tablet, sneaking a peek at Elena reviewing financial data across the room. She caught Elena's eye, and they held it, silent acknowledgement of the experiment, the poll, the new rules of engagement. Somewhere in the HR office, Penelope sighed, already drafting a policy memo about professional boundaries and CEO staff entanglements. A quiet revelation. As the day ended, Riley closed her tablet, taking a deep breath. The experiment wasn't just working, they were thriving. Their hidden talents at Connection, buried beneath years of ice and darkness, were now surfacing, undeniable and magnetic. Elena's storm gray eyes caught hers one last time before she exited the office, a small, rare smile on her lips. "Tomorrow, we continue," she whispered, more to herself than to Riley. Riley's lips curved into a faint smirk. "We do," she murmured. "And HR?" Still watching, still anxious, still aware that Dark and Ice don't play by the rules. Chapter 24: Declarations and Awkward Fire. The office was quieter than usual. Riley's hoodie hung heavier on her shoulders, like armor she didn't need, but she couldn't shake it. Today was the day they had to declare it. The company didn't forbid dating between coworkers, but transparency was required. Official. Documented. HR approved. Elena stood at the edge of Riley's desk, storm gray eyes sharp, Ice unshaken. But there was a tremor Riley noticed, faint, almost imperceptible, beneath the perfect facade. "So," Elena said, voice low, smooth, deadly precise. "We submit the form." Riley blinked. "We submit the form?" "Yes." HR, compliance, transparency, corporate, bureaucracy. Elena's lips twitched, almost a smirk. "You'll do it." "I'll do it." Minimal embarrassment, procedural only. Allegedly. Riley stared. "Procedural only? You're asking me to navigate HR bureaucracy with you?" "Ice Queen." Elena's lips curved slightly. "Exactly. Try not to melt." The walk of awkward. They approached HR together, a formidable presence, storm and darkness, yet each step made Riley's stomach twist. HR's office smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood, the kind of scent that usually meant order and rules, but today, it smelled like chaos waiting to happen. Penelope Graves, sitting behind her perfectly organized desk, looked up. Riley Bennett. Miss Quinn. How interesting." "Interesting," Elena repeated, voice clipped, ice still in her tone, though her storm gray eyes flickered with something else. "Yes. We're declaring." As per policy. Riley's hoodie suddenly felt like a straitjacket. "Yes. Declaration," she echoed, muttering under her breath. "I cannot believe we are doing this." Penelope raised an eyebrow, clearly expecting the tension that filled the room. "You two seem tense." "Not tense," Elena said smoothly. "Procedural. Only procedural." Riley glanced at Elena. "Yes. Only procedural." Fumbling through paperwork. The HR form sat on the desk like a gauntlet. Riley's hands hovered over the pen, stiff and uncooperative. Elena's hand brushed hers as she reached to sign first, a subtle touch that sent a shiver down Riley's spine. "Careful," Riley muttered, breath hitching. Elena's storm gray eyes softened. "Careful," she whispered back, voice low, teasing but no less intense. They signed, simultaneously, a formal acknowledgement of their relationship, a tether now acknowledged officially in the corporate world, yet the intensity of proximity was palpable, their breaths mingling, shoulders brushing. The aftermath. They left HR's office, neither speaking, each processing the absurdity of the situation, Ice Queen and Dark Knight, officially dating on paper. In the hallway, Riley finally whispered, "I hate bureaucracy." Elena smirked, leaning close. "I hate not being able to touch you without paperwork." Riley's lips twitched into a faint smile, heart hammering. "And yet, here we are." Elena's storm gray gaze lingered, magnetic, teasing. Here we are, she echoed. And in the office behind them, HR's Penelope muttered to herself, adjusting her glasses. Corporate history will not forgive this level of awkward, but let's be honest. I love it. Chapter 25, the first official date. The late afternoon sun felt almost cruel in its brightness as Riley stared at her reflection. Hoodie gone, cargo pants replaced with a fitted black dress shirt and low-hanging black pants that Jenny insisted shows just enough without screaming desperate. Riley's dark hair framed her face, loose waves brushing her shoulders, eyes dark and sharp but softer somehow. Jenny clapped her hands, pacing in Riley's small apartment like a whirlwind of color. You look incredible. Trust me. She's going to notice, and she's going to freak out, in a good way. Riley raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. I am not concerned with freaking out anyone. I am mildly concerned about appearing human. Jenny rolled her eyes. Mildly concerned? Mildly concerned doesn't cut it. You're about to go on your first date outside the office, Riley Bennett. You must do human. Riley exhaled, a low hiss of irritation and excitement. Fine. Human I will do. But just barely. The preparation. Jenny handed Riley a pair of subtle earrings and a bracelet. Accessories, not armor. This is not a battlefield, she said, smiling, eyes sparkling. Riley flexed her fingers, tapping them against the dresser. I've survived numbers, office politics, and an ice queen who could freeze me with a glance. I can survive this. Jenny laughed. Yes, but can you survive looking like you care? Because that is dangerous. Riley gave her a small, reluctant smirk. Dangerous is subjective. Arrival. Evening fell, soft and golden, as Riley pulled up in her modest black car. Elena's car, the sleek Mustang, storm gray machine, was already there, engine humming like a low growl. Riley took a deep breath, stepped out, heels clicking softly against the pavement, nerves thrumming with the tethered anticipation she'd felt in the office, but magnified 100-fold. Elena was waiting, storm gray eyes scanning, assessing, calculating, then pausing, her breath hitched, lips curving slightly as the tether caught fire again. You, Elena said, voice low, precise, ice, still present but curiosity and amusement threading through it. You, Riley replied, eyes dark, sharp, but undeniably human now, the armor stripped just enough. The awkward dance begins. Dinner was a quiet, intimate table in a dimly lit restaurant. Riley found herself aware of every movement, how Elena reached for her glass, the subtle flare of her nostrils when laughing, the magnetic draw of those storm gray eyes. You're different outside the office, Elena said, voice low, teasing. Riley smirked faintly. And you're terrifyingly human. Elena chuckled softly, the sound sending an unexpected warmth through Riley's chest. I could get used to this, she murmured, almost to herself. Jenny's voice echoed faintly in Riley's mind, a cheeky whisper. See? You can do this. You can be fire without burning the world down. Riley laughed quietly, a sound unfamiliar even to herself, but it fit dark, soft, and alive. Chapter 26, Sparks Outside the Office. The soft hum of the city surrounded them as Riley and Elena walked side by side, hands brushing lightly, fingers almost intertwining, but not quite. Every step was a negotiation of control, desire, and restraint. Riley's heels clicked on the pavement, a slow, deliberate rhythm. She stole glances at Elena, who was impossibly composed in her tailored coat, storm gray eyes scanning the streetlights, calculating everything, including Riley. So, Elena said, voice low, teasing but steady, you didn't run for cover the moment you saw me? Riley smirked, dark and wicked. I'm not scared of you. Not yet, anyway. Elena's lips curved in a rare, small smile. Yet, the first real laugh. They stopped outside a small, intimate cafe, the kind with fairy lights strung along the windows and soft jazz filtering through. Inside, Riley realized she was smiling, not her usual, guarded, subtle smirk, but a real smile. Elena noticed immediately. You're smiling. Only because I'm not dead, Riley replied, mock serious, but her eyes shone with warmth and mischief. Elena laughed softly, a sound both foreign and intoxicating to Riley. "You're different," she said, almost in awe. "Not different. Just human." Shockingly confident at pretending otherwise, Riley shot back, dark humor threading through her words. The magnetic pull intensifies. Dinner passed with conversations that were sharp, teasing, and intimate in turns. Every accidental brush of hands, every shared look, made the tether pulse stronger. At one point, Elena reached across the table to adjust a stray lock of Riley's hair. Riley froze, breath catching, pulse accelerating. "You're reckless," she murmured. Elena's storm-gray eyes softened, a rare flicker of vulnerability. "I could say the same about you," she whispered. Chapter 27, The First Storm. The night air was cool, crisp, brushing against Riley's skin as she followed Elena to the car. Every step was deliberate, every glance a tether pulling tighter. Neither spoke. Words would only disrupt the storm building between them. Elena opened the car door, a small, rare smile tugging at her lips. "After you," she murmured, voice low and intimate. Riley's pulse raced, dark eyes catching Elena's in the dim streetlight. "Lead the way," she replied, her voice husky, deliberate. The quiet before the storm. Once inside Elena's apartment, the air shifted, charged, electric, expectant. Neither moved immediately. They stood, inches apart, storm and darkness colliding in silence. Elena reached out first, fingertips brushing against Riley's jawline. Riley's breath hitched. "You're reckless," she whispered, tone dark, teasing, but vulnerable beneath the bravado. Elena's storm-gray eyes softened. "So are you," she countered, voice low, magnetic. Their hands intertwined naturally, almost as if tethered by fate. Riley felt the cold of Elena's fingers, the fire of her own pulse, and the two combined into a rhythm neither could resist. The first touches. Clothes became secondary. Every brush of skin, every shared breath, sent shivers down spines long accustomed to control and restraint. Riley traced the line of Elena's jaw, fingers trembling slightly despite herself. Elena responded, hands sliding down Riley's back, pulling her closer, not forceful, but undeniable. Dark and ice, dark and controlled, meshed in a careful, electric chaos. "This is real," Riley whispered, lips barely brushing Elena's. "Yes," Elena breathed, stormy eyes darkening. "Finally real." The storm ignites. They moved together slowly, deliberately, learning the contours of desire hidden beneath years of restraint. Every kiss, every touch was charged with the tension of months of tethered longing. The storm within them finally broke, gentle yet overwhelming, restrained yet consuming. Riley's dark eyes met Elena's storm-gray gaze. "We fit," she murmured, almost a question. Elena's lips curved in a rare, small smile. "Better than we ever imagined," she whispered, voice rough with emotion. And for the first time, dark and ice were no longer boundaries, they were fusion. Dangerous, magnetic, undeniable. Chapter 28, Irresistible Pull. Riley Bennett walked into Synergex that morning wearing a crisp black dress shirt, sleeves rolled slightly, the dark fabric hugging her form just enough to hint at the power underneath. No hoodie, no armor, just controlled elegance hiding the fire beneath. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. "Elena Quinn, come to my office." "Now." Riley smirked, dark and wicked. The tether pulsed stronger than her heartbeat. She didn't hesitate. The usual meticulous pace of her steps was replaced by a steady, purposeful glide, each heel tap against the floor echoing her anticipation. The first office encounter. Elena's office smelled faintly of leather and the faintest hint of her signature perfume. Storm-gray eyes locked onto Riley the moment she stepped in, a smile playing at the corners of her lips, controlled, dangerous, magnetic. "Do you know how distracting you are?" Elena murmured, voice low, teasing, commanding all at once. Riley's smirk deepened. "I could ask you the same, Ice Queen." Elena didn't answer with words. Instead, she gestured toward the edge of her desk, a silent command Riley obeyed instantly. The office, normally a space of power and authority, became their own arena of quiet tension, where touches, glances, and proximity were enough to make hearts race and pulse accelerate. The dance of temptation. Minutes, or maybe hours, passed in a suspended rhythm. Elena leaned back slightly in her chair, letting Riley approach, every step a deliberate tease. Fingers brushed, hands lingered, every touch a calculated spark. "You can't do this," Riley whispered, voice low, nearly trembling. "Can't? Or won't resist?" Elena countered, storm gray eyes darkening, magnetic. Riley's hands trailed up Elena's arm, tracing, testing, learning, every move precise yet laced with desire. "Won't resist," she admitted, dark humor and raw longing wrapped in the single phrase. No rules, just tether. Their interactions became addictive. A brief meeting could morph into a stolen kiss. A discussion of numbers blurred into touches that lingered too long. Elena found every excuse to summon Riley to her office. Reports, budget queries, strategic discussions, all pretexts for closeness. Riley, for her part, never refused. She thrived in the dark elegance, the contrast between her professional poise and the storm Elena pulled from her. "I don't think we can. Stop," Riley whispered one afternoon, leaning close, breath mingling. Elena's storm gray eyes softened, rare and dangerous. "Why would we?" she murmured. "We were never meant to." A quiet surrender. Every encounter in the office was a test of restraint and temptation. Dark and ice, Dark Knight and Ice Queen were learning a new rhythm, work, desire, stolen moments, and a tether that refused to let go. And somewhere in HR, Penelope Graves might have sighed, muttering to herself, "This isn't allowed." But I can't even be mad. Not even a little. Chapter 29, Stolen Fires. The office lights had dimmed to a soft glow, but neither Riley nor Elena noticed. Riley leaned against the edge of Elena's desk, black shirt crisp yet slightly rumpled from the subtle movement of her shoulders, the tension between them palpable. "You're everywhere," Riley murmured, dark eyes tracing Elena's storm gray gaze. "I have needs," Elena replied, voice low, measured, dangerous. "And you, Dark Knight, are unavoidable." Riley smirked, stepping closer, the air between them vibrating with the pull of the tether. Unavoidable or irresistible? Elena's lips curved, almost a tease, almost a promise. "Both," she whispered, leaning in so close that Riley could feel the warmth of her breath. The office becomes their playground. Every excuse now was pretext, a budget review, a report signature, a discussion about quarterly projections, all served as cover for touches that lingered, glances that burned, and whispers exchanged so quietly no one else could hear. Riley's pulse thrummed beneath her shirt. She leaned forward to hand Elena a report, and their fingers brushed, lingering, igniting a spark neither could ignore. "Elena." Riley's voice was low, husky, almost reverent. "Yes." Elena's storm gray eyes darkened, magnetic, commanding. Riley's lips twitched in a dangerous smile. "I can't stay away from you." Elena's response was slow, deliberate, an inch closer until their foreheads almost touched. "Nor I, from you," she murmured, voice a silky storm of temptation. A brief respite. They paused, catching their breath. The tether had transformed into something heavier, palpable, like gravity pulling them together. Neither could fight it, nor would they try. Riley's fingers brushed a stray lock of hair from Elena's face, lingering, memorizing. "This, us, it's dangerous," she breathed. Elena smiled, rare and magnetic, hand brushing Riley's cheek. "Dangerous, yes. But necessary," she whispered. "I need this. I need you." The unstoppable pull. Even with HR just down the hall, even with reports and budgets piling up, the office no longer belonged to anyone but them. Every glance, every touch, every shared breath became a stolen fire, electric, consuming, uncontainable. And Riley, standing there in the black shirt she had once deemed armor, realized that she had never felt this alive, this tethered, this dangerously human. Elena's storm gray eyes captured hers, magnetic, undeniable. "We cannot hide this," she whispered. Riley's dark smirk returned. Nor do I want to. Chapter 30, The Tether Unleashed. The next morning, Riley Bennett walked into Synergex wearing her signature black dress shirt, sleeves rolled neatly, hair loose but perfect, eyes dark and stormy with intent. Her phone buzzed before she even reached the elevator. Elena Quinn, 10 a.m. My office. Urgent. Riley smirked. Urgent had never sounded so magnetic. Public but uncontainable. Elena was already there when Riley arrived. Storm gray eyes met hers across the office floor, a sharp, magnetic pull that made Riley's pulse thrum dangerously. This time, it wasn't a subtle summons. Elena made a show of calling her over, just enough for a few colleagues to notice, though none dared interrupt. Riley walked with deliberate ease, boots squeaking against the marble, letting the tether's pull take her closer. Elena. Riley's voice was dark, teasing low. Yes, Elena's lips curved into the tiniest smirk. You're here. Finally. The stolen moments multiply. Inside the office, touches lingered longer. Hands brushed across papers, forearms collided while reviewing reports, shoulders pressed together for collaboration, all under the guise of work. Riley's fingers found Elena's as she passed a document across the desk. Neither pulled away. You're reckless, Riley murmured, voice low, pulse quickened. And you are insufferably tempting, Elena replied, storm gray eyes dark and magnetic, hand brushing against Riley's in a way that spoke volumes. The tether in motion. Lunch became a blur. They found excuses to share corners of cafes near the office, where stolen kisses and lingering touches could happen away from prying eyes. Even the simplest conversation, coffee orders, budget adjustments, was loaded with the unspoken tension of everything they refused to hide from each other. Riley leaned back, letting Elena brush a finger along her arm. We can't stop, can we? Elena's lips curved, close to Riley's ear. Why would we? Every glance, every brush, every quiet laugh in each other's presence reinforced the tether that had begun as subtle intrigue in the office and now pulsed openly, magnetic and unavoidable. A quiet acknowledgement. By late afternoon, the office felt smaller, tighter, suffused with the quiet energy of them both. Storm and darkness intertwined, and even the hum of computers and distant chatter seemed to fall away. Riley's hand found Elena's once more. This, us, it's real, she whispered. Elena's storm gray eyes softened, rare and vulnerable, yet strong. Yes, painfully, dangerously real, she admitted. And in that acknowledgement, both knew the tether wasn't just a pull anymore. It was a storm neither could deny, a force that would shape every step forward, every stolen moment, every beat of desire they dared to share. Chapter 31, No Boundaries. Riley pulled her car into a secluded spot by the lake house Elena had quietly reserved. The sun was beginning its descent, casting gold and orange streaks over the water. The world felt softer here, quieter, untouched by the corporate grind that had fueled their tether for months. Riley stepped out, black shirt now paired with sleek pants, dark hair loose and windswept. Elena was already waiting, storm gray eyes scanning, assessing, storm and calm interwoven in a way that made Riley's pulse jump. You're early, Riley murmured, a smirk playing at her lips. Elena's lips curved in the tiniest, sharp smile. I couldn't wait. The first weekend together. Inside the lake house, the air smelled faintly of wood polish and fresh linen. Elena's presence was magnetic, controlled, deliberate. Riley let herself exhale for the first time in months. The office armor was gone, replaced by the quiet electricity of anticipation. Sit, Elena commanded softly, gesturing to the edge of the couch. Riley obeyed, the pull of the tether making each step feel charged, inevitable. Do you realize we're finally alone? Riley whispered, voice low, tremor of excitement barely masked. Elena leaned close, hand brushing Riley's. Alone. No office, no reports, no HR whispers. Just us, she murmured, voice magnetic, stormy, impossible to ignore. Dark and ice unleashed. Minutes or hours blurred as the weekend unfolded. Stolen kisses, whispered confessions, touches that lingered longer than necessary. Every glance carried the weight of months of tethered longing. Riley traced the line of Elena's jaw, memorizing it, savoring it. This, us, it's dangerous, she murmured. Dangerous. Elena's storm-gray eyes darkened. No, this is necessary. The tether between them pulsed stronger than ever, each moment unspooling the restraint they had maintained in the office. Clothes became secondary, laughter interspersed with moans, and every touch ignited the storm that had begun months ago with a single glance. The intimacy deepens. They moved together with a rhythm that was both new and familiar. Dark met ice, darkness met storm, control met surrender. Riley felt alive in ways numbers and spreadsheets never allowed. Elena found warmth in vulnerability she'd long buried beneath her icy exterior. In the quiet moments, fingers entwined, foreheads resting together, breaths mingling, they discovered a shared truth. The tether was no longer subtle. It was overwhelming, magnetic, and utterly undeniable. Riley, Elena whispered, voice soft, almost reverent, I can't imagine going back. Riley's dark eyes glimmered in the fading light. Nor do I want to, she breathed. And there, in the lake house by the golden water, Dark and Ice finally existed without boundaries, without restraint, and without the world to interfere. Epilogue: Dark and Ice, finally at rest. The morning sunlight spilled through the Synergex windows, soft and warm, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the office didn't feel like a battlefield. Elena Quinn sat at her desk, storm-gray eyes scanning reports, but there was a softness to her posture, a subtle curve to her lips. The Ice Queen was smiling, and everyone noticed. Carefully, respectfully. Riley Bennett entered shortly after, black shirt replaced with a sleek, tailored jacket today, no hiding, no shadows. Her dark eyes scanned the office briefly before landing on Elena, and a small smirk curved her lips. She had found her place, not just at Synergex, but beside Elena, tethered yet free. A new office rhythm. Meetings now held a different energy. Elena's assistant, once trembling at the slightest word, now navigated the office with confidence, aware of boundaries, aware of the subtle power dynamic that had shifted, but safe, so long as he respected it. Colleagues whispered occasionally, yes, but only in admiration. Dark and Ice had tempered into an undeniable force that no one dared challenge, but which everyone now respected. Productivity surged, tension eased, and the office breathed as one. The tether, now everyday magic. Riley and Elena's subtle glances across the room, fingers brushing over shared reports, small touches at the edge of a meeting, it all became a rhythm of its own. No longer forbidden, no longer a tease, but a constant reminder of the storm they had weathered together. Riley, once hidden behind hoodies in silence, now moved openly, her presence magnetic yet controlled. Elena, Ice Queen of the office, had learned to smile without losing her edge. Her storm remained, but it was tempered by the fire Riley carried and the tether that refused to let either go. Balance and power. Every so often, someone would step wrong, push a boundary too far. Then the Ice Queen's storm returned, controlled, deadly, precise, and everyone remembered. Respect the tether. Respect the dark. Respect the ice. But most of the time, the office thrummed with a quiet energy, laughter, confidence, and a subtle heat pulsing beneath the professionalism. Dark and Ice, Dark and Storm, had found their balance, and in doing so, had changed everything around them. Riley's smirk met Elena's storm-gray eyes across the room. A small, unspoken acknowledgement of what they had built. Of what they were. And for once, in the heart of the corporate battlefield, peace, dark, and ice coexisted perfectly. The proposal. The office hummed with the usual Monday morning rhythm. Phones clicked, keyboards tapped, and the subtle buzz of conversation filled the open-plan space. Riley Bennett moved through the room with confidence, black shirt crisp, hair dark and sleek, a smirk tugging at her lips as she passed a few colleagues' desks. Then she saw it. Elena Quinn standing at the center of the office, storm-gray eyes catching the light, tailored coat perfectly sharp. But today, the Ice Queen's composure carried a different weight. Elena. Riley's dark voice was curious, cautious, magnetic. Elena's lips curved, a rare, full smile breaking the office's usual chill. Riley, come here. Riley paused, heartbeat speeding, the familiar tether pulling taut. She approached, every step deliberate, every colleague now almost frozen in silent attention. And then it happened. Elena's eyes never left Riley's as she slowly bent to one knee, right there in the open office. The clatter of keyboards and shuffling of papers fell away. All that existed was the storm and the darkness, dark and ice, finally fully exposed. Riley Bennett, Elena's voice was low, steady, and yet trembling with the rarest vulnerability. You have invaded my calm, shattered my control, and lit a fire I never thought I would feel. I don't want to fight it. I don't want to hide it. Will you marry me? Riley's dark eyes widened, pulse racing. For a heartbeat, the office seemed to hold its breath, the tether between them thrumming louder than ever. Riley bent slightly, one hand brushing against Elena's shoulder, the other coming up to cradle her cheek. A smirk formed, full of fire and mischief, tempered by emotion. You, reckless ice queen, she whispered, voice low, husky. I thought I could resist. I was wrong. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. Cheers erupted from the office, a mixture of awe and applause, but Riley and Elena didn't notice. Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling, hands locked together, tethered fully, irreversibly. And in that moment, the office that had once been a battlefield breathed easily. The Ice Queen smiled, the dark night no longer hiding, and every corner of Synergex knew the tether was permanent, unbreakable, and now, gloriously, irrevocably theirs. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.